Excellent. Hi, everyone. I'd like to officially welcome you to our very first Rebound to Skating webinar in the webinar series. The Rebound to Skating webinar series is funded by a grant from the Ontario Trillium Fund. As you know, the province has moved into step 3 of our roadmap to recovery. Yay! We're really excited because this has given the opportunity for indoor sports to get back on the ice. There's been a lot of clubs that have, or I shouldn't say a lot, there have been some clubs that have started to get their skaters back on the ice slowly but surely. It's been really nice to see pictures of kids skating and back in the arenas. So we're going to start things off today just with a quick poll. So this poll is just about you and your club. We just want to know when you think that your club when you're planning to return to the ice. So I'm just going to put this up here. Oh goodness, there's lots of people already back on the ice. I love it. So exciting. Okay, I think everybody's had a chance here to get in. So I'm going to end the poll and share it with you. So you can see there, we've got many clubs some clubs that are already back on the ice now that are here, and some that are starting in July and August, which is great. And everybody else looks like they're starting in September, October. That's really, really great. That helps us as we're planning to get things rolling, just as to when we get things out. So that's really great. Thank you. Okay, so with COVID, the situation evolving the way it was, we began planning for the rebound to skating last fall. So there's been a bit of a process that we have been going through to go through that. And as mentioned in the intro, Skate Ontario received a grant through the Ontario Trillium Fund. And with this, we've been working with a cross-section of clubs and skating schools to work on some resources and some platforms and initiatives to help support you as you get back to the rink. So this project includes multiple initiatives. Firstly, we started with some club grants. And the grants were funded by the government. They were a direct flow through straight to clubs and skating schools. There was an application process, and we distributed $125,000 to clubs, ranging between $500 and $5,000. So that was to go towards next season. Secondly, we're creating a toolkit. This toolkit will include a resource playbook that has all sorts of resources for clubs and schools starting up. It could be budgeting, it could be re-looking at the demographics at the school and your club membership, it could be re-looking at your programming and what to offer, and just giving a whole plethora of ideas for you to look through before you go. Also, the toolkit will include a sampling of teaching aids. So these teaching aids are easy to clean, they're non-porous, and there's a hands-on tool, a compact hands-on tool to help with hands-on assistance as we move back to the ice for can skate and such. Okay, this is planned. We're planning to mail this out in August. So fingers crossed. We've got a couple of things that we're still finishing up, but we're hoping to get that out to you in August. Thirdly, we're running this webinar series. This piece right now is the first one of the webinar series, and we are essentially going to unpack the toolkit. So we're going to unpack the items that are in there, the resources that we have created or provided for you for the fall. We're going to slowly go through those things. So these webinars, there's information available on the website, but they will lead up to the fall season as we get started. Nextly, marketing. Skate Ontario will be planning to launch a marketing campaign online through social media platforms to promote this awesome sport we're in, figure skating, and our Learn to Skate program for everyone. So it'll be local in your area. We will be highlighting the Can Skate Excellence program to show that extra step that we have gone to offer a really awesome program in Ontario. Lastly, we're going to launch a hype event. So this will be an online event that it'll be hosted in the fall. I can't remember the date. Melissa, you might remember. But it will be targeted to our current membership and skating enthusiasts right down to the can skate level. The mission is to support the awareness of our awesome sport and get people talking about it, plus add a little bit of fun for our current membership. So we're hoping that one is going to be a lot of fun. So that will be happening in the fall. So the best part of all of this plan is that we're actually getting back on the ice. So with that, we've updated our return to play protocols. Those went out last week or 2 weeks ago. My dates are all mishmashed. So that's why we have people getting back on the ice. It's great. It's completely different than what we had before. So there are some really big changes. I'm just going to highlight a few of them just to give you an idea in case you haven't seen them. A few highlights would be all programs are currently available. That's all Skate Canada and skating club and skating school programs. There's no exceptions. They're all available. There's no distancing required while you're doing sport. Which is a big deal for us for obviously things like pre-can skate and the lower levels of can skate, synchro, right? All those types of things is really, really big deal. Masks need to be worn by coaches unless they're engaging in the sport. So if they're doing partnering or they're working the harness, those types of things where they actually need to use a little bit more physical energy. And then skaters do not need to wear masks as long as they're engaging in the sport as well. You'll find in there that the facility stuff, once you get off the ice and you're not engaging in sport anymore, you've still got distancing requirements. The masks are all still there. So that is there. A lot of questions about program numbers. So program numbers are as per Skate Canada, as per normal, I will say. You'll find those in our current documents online in the white part of the program delivery standards. For example, the can skate will say the maximum shouldn't exceed 50 to 60 skaters. Your can power will say 30, those types of things. But you will need to be in direct contact with your facility. Your facility will be the limiting factor right now, as they have restrictions put upon them. And I believe it's 50% of facility capacity. So your relationship with them will still need to stay nice and strong. Okay. Any questions that we have going for those pieces? Do we have any in here, Melissa?
There's just one question regarding the online marketing campaign, when it's going to take place.
Oh, that's a good question. We're still in a little bit of a planning phase. We had some trouble getting ice to get things going because we do want to run a commercial style video that goes online. My first gut when we speak about it is that it will run early fall and then possibly through to December, January. Okay. Excellent. Over to you, Melissa.
Perfect. Thank you guys. So as Sharon mentioned, the size allowed on your on-ice programs will be determined by your facility and their capacity numbers. So this kind of leads us into our kind of first topic for this webinar, and that's your club or skating school's relationship with your facility. So we've talked with tons of rural and urban and small and large clubs and schools across the province. And there's a common thread in kind of this development of a stronger relationship with your facilities. So I am going to put up a poll for you guys. We'll just start off this section with that. So I'm going to launch this poll for you guys. Have you developed a better relationship with your facility over the past season? Votes are rolling in. We'll wait a few more seconds here. Great. All righty, end poll and share results. So looks like most people either better relationship or has maintained the same. I see one person, unfortunately, was struggling still with the relationship, right? I think it's obviously important. I think we saw in the past year the importance and the need to have that connection with your facility, right? With all of the restrictions and protocols that were in place. So it's important to continue to foster that relationship and to maintain that connection, right? Even moving into this season and seasons beyond. Some benefits that, of having a really good relationship with your facility can be, just the simple, the phrase putting a name to a face, that brings you up, right? Your organization isn't just this nameless organization, you're associated with a person, right? That personal connection can really help with, when there's talks about scheduling or this type of thing. You're not just this nameless organization, you actually have a face, which is nice. You'll be at the forethought of their minds when they're thinking about those types of things to include you guys in those conversations. So that's an important benefit that if you have a strong relationship can come from this. Another big one when you have a really strong, connection with your facility, you can really talk about your impact to the community and to being able to offer, youth sport opportunities within your local community, right? So that's a super important. So it's great to highlight that with your facility. And a really one other really great understanding that can come from this is their understanding of your skating programs, right? The delivery of them, the use of off ice and on ice, all those types of things. So this relationship with your facility, the stronger that is, the better the understanding is between you two, and they can support you guys better. So we've kind of talked with you guys, and we've come up with some steps that may help to facilitate a better relationship between your club and skating school and your facility. The first being identifying a main point of contact for both your school and club, and the facility, right? Having that one person that simplifies the channels of communication. You're not trying to piece together information. Just having that one point of contact really does allow full information to flow between your facility and your club and skating school. Secondly, I'm hoping of seeing that most of you are either planning on getting up and running in the next couple months. You're going to want to connect with them to make sure, what are their plans for putting the ice back in, all those types of things, right? There may be not a need, or they haven't seen a need from user groups yet. So putting that in their brain, they might decide to put in the ice earlier, that type of thing. So that's a really good step to do as well. Along with finding out the anticipated facility protocols, right? So screening, spectator guidelines, anticipated session lengths and cleaning times, dressing room and bathroom access and use, and traffic flow, right? Ins and outs, where people are going to go, those types of things will be really important information for you to gather for your members. And lastly, you're going to want to share the Skate Ontario return to play protocols with your facility. Really, this basically demonstrates to your facility that you have a standard that you guys have to deliver your programs at that follow public health guidelines, right? So you would meet those public health guidelines that they're going to need to ensure their user groups are meeting as well. So those are some kind of key steps that we've heard from member clubs and skating schools, and stuff that we've found in our interactions with facilities across the province. So maybe having a meeting with your facility right now ahead of your planning would be really important. This can be in person or virtual, right? We've seen both of those options kind of opening up now. So it'll be a really key time to get that information that you can take forward and use in your planning for the year. Is there any questions, Sharon, on that right now?
Nothing at the moment.
Okay, perfect. All righty. So now that you've talked with your facility, we'll move into our next kind of topic for today, and that's understanding your demographics of your membership and your community. So it's really important to get that feedback from your memberships in order to start your planning process for this year. Some questions to consider asking or reaching out to your membership to gain information on. First and foremost, what is their intent to return to skating this year, right? We've seen, in the past, there's some standoffishness, all that type of stuff. So it'd be important to gauge that because then you can know, 50% of our memberships returning. How does that impact your scheduling, your sessions, that type of thing? An important thing to potentially gain out of that too is if you find people aren't returning, ask them why, right? Is it, safety or, comfort levels being back on the ice? Is it lack of interest, right? Has their skater lost that interest in sport? Is it the cost, right? All those types of things can impact. And the more information you have, the more you can take back and put into your planning process. Another good question to consider asking is if there's any changes in resourcing with your families. Right? Work situations, personal circumstances, right? So do they have the time to take their kids to and from school? Is there maybe not funds to be able to put towards skating? Those are the types of things that would be really important to gain some information on for you guys. You can consider sending this out in a survey. We've seen, SurveyMonkey or Google Forms. Those are two really great options and tools that you guys could use. But it'd be, easy for you guys to send it out and collect that information back from your members. And as I said, all of this information is going to be really important in your planning for this coming year. It impacts your schedule of sessions, your program fees, and depending on your interest level and people coming back, it can also impact your staffing requirements, right? If you have 50% of your members coming back, you might not, your staffing, your coaches, your PAs, all that all impacts that. So it's important to get this information now during your planning process. So that's your current membership. Some important other avenues to explore would be opportunities within your local community. So some areas to consider, some opportunities maybe are connecting with other clubs or schools in your area, right? Is there an opportunity to be able to link up, right? Offering sessions in multiple facilities, that type of thing. Are there initiatives that can be combined to expand your reach and also make them more cost effective, right? So we're talking about maybe ice shows or performance and development opportunities, assessment days, and even fundraisers. Those are some initiatives to consider, maybe connecting with somebody, a local club or a skating school in your area to run with. Another area to consider is, does your municipality run their own Learn to Skate program, right? Is this an opportunity for you to say, hey, we have the best Learn to Skate program in Skate Canada's Can Skate. We'd love to take over your program for you, right? So you are upping the level of programming within your community, just better skating at the end of the day. And you're also increasing your membership base. Third area to consider looking at this season, are there any unmet needs in your community where you can add a program to help fulfill them? Some examples would be, is there a lack of team sports for girls, right? That's a big one, right? We see a lot of girls leave sport because, that's too individualized, right? So this could be an opportunity to potentially add in a synchro program, right? Something like that, where there's a community built into that program. Additional programs to meet your larger community needs. Can Power Skate's a great one. Adult sessions, even the Can Skate Parent and Taught, right? Another avenue to potentially look at exploring. And lastly, we'll go into, I think we've all seen the impact this pandemic has had on youth sport. Figure skating is not alone in that. Sport across the board has been negatively impacted by this pandemic. So consider reaching out to other youth sports where you could see, where you can partner and see where there's opportunities to link up and connect. A couple examples are your hockey and ringette organizations. Can you link with them and say, hey, we'll run your Learn to Skate program for you, and we'll filter your kids back to hockey, right? Those types of things, right? It helps with that community base and that connection, and making sure that you guys have a good relationship. Think about maybe some off-ice stuff, right? Looking at a local dance or gymnastics organization, right? Can you link up and do some off-ice sessions, like stuff like musicality or flexibility, those types of sessions? You can reduce the overhead cost if you have a larger group, and both organizations are contributing, right? Those are some really great examples of areas just you might not have thought of in the past, and it's a really good time to be able to capitalize on this, right? People are used to adapting now, right? People are looking for new ways to do stuff. So this is a really great time to take advantage of some potentially different avenues and some different operational stuff at your club or school that you guys can change and add to make you guys better. Is there any questions on that, Sharon?
No, there's no questions in there right now. But I can start up, and then if anything comes up, we can hit it.
Perfect.
Okay. I want to launch in right on top of that adaptability. I really want to talk about how much clubs and skating schools adapted over this past season. We were really lucky because we had the opportunity to network with a really big number of clubs and skating schools this season. It opened up so many more channels of communication for us, which was really, really good, honestly, in both ways, right? For us and for the clubs. The coolest thing this year is we had more ways to connect. So we did keep in touch with clubs this season, of course, through emails and phone calls, but also we surveyed to clubs in the fall, and had a phenomenal response rate from clubs as to what was going on and what they were planning, what their concerns were, and those types of things. That has helped us a ton in our planning as we move forward to the rebound to skating. We also did a full needs assessment with a cross section of clubs and skating schools and coaches to talk about what happened. So this was later in the season, January, February, where we could talk about what actually happened on the ice, what their concerns were for moving forward, and if they had any ideas for us to help them tackle those challenges as they move forward. So this has been really, really good. And one thing that we noticed was that you had a lot to do. There was a lot of changes. Some days you had ice, sometimes you didn't. Sometimes we were allowed to skate, sometimes we weren't. Sometimes we could have lots of coaches, sometimes we couldn't. Sometimes there was an arena and sometimes it was a COVID center. There was so many different things that changed. It was very cool from our stance, and Melissa, you may echo the same statements, but that we could see the constant adaptability and the willingness to just make it happen. So it was really, really cool to see. Having said all of that, you told us all sorts of things that you did. So we're going to share those things with you today in just a cross section. Some of the things we'll hit in later webinars as well in greater depth, but I will go over some of the points today, even if you have questions moving forward and that kind of stuff. Okay. So an overview, one of the things, there's a lot of creative scheduling. Right? Scheduling became a different beast. There was a few ideas. So one of them was combining sessions. So mixing, depending on where you were and what your situation was, different things work for different people, but combining your Can Skate and Can Power session, combining your Can Skate with your Can Skate Parent and Taught, even combining Can Skate and Star sessions are all things that were used last season to maximize ice usage. Overlapping sessions. So there's been one club in particular, but I'm not going to name them, but they tended to overlap their sessions. So what would happen is once the cleaning protocols were set, they could figure out what kids could be allowed on the ice, but maximizing their ice time, they were able to overlap 2 sessions. So having, for example, the Star 5 session before, the Star Skate session afterwards, having the Star 1 to 5 stay 10 minutes late, the Star Skates starting 10 minutes early, and they could run a 20-minute class. So it was increasing both the times, and they could work on edge turn or whatever their class might be for that day. So that was a really good idea from them. Grouping skaters in different ways. So it could be by age. Age is always promoted as, even from our end, as it offers a greater sense of community and camaraderie with your skaters. Grouping skaters by their coach. So if there's coaching teams that have groups of skaters they can work with, this is a great time that you can make that happen when you have lots, right? It obviously depends on the size of your club. So thinking about the ways to group your skaters is also beneficial. Increasing the level range. So having your Star 1s to triples all in the same session if you've only got 15 skaters, right? Making sure that you can use the ice wisely. There are so many ways to ensure safety on those sessions and awareness. Just making sure that we work, that your coaches and your skaters and your club work as a team to make that happen. The finding fluid ways to register and refund skaters. Whew, there's a lot of refunds going on this year. So we definitely make sure that your club members are aware of or have a process and make sure they're aware of what it is, including if there's any non-negotiable fees that aren't refundable, what the timeline might be, who they need to contact, all of those types of things. Make sure you have someone dedicated to the project, because if it happens, it tends to be a project. It's not a here and there, it tends to be a whole session or several sessions, etc. And remember to be flexible. So we're all in this together. So trying to make sure that it's easy on both sides, because we do want those skaters to come back. So definitely looking into that. There was a lot of great things that clubs did. This one was a hard one to pinpoint an exact way they did it, but definitely those were the key areas that clubs changed up to make sure that they had that flexibility for refunds. Be crafty in your coaching schedule. There's been some clubs that tended to start changing their coaches schedule around to show that maybe one coach, if Melissa was coaching at my club, she might coach for all the sessions that day, so that she only comes in that day, and then we bring in Ingrid the next time, and Ingrid's going to coach all the sessions on the next day, depending if there's any restriction on coaches. It can be helpful, and working with your coaches to group them with their skaters as best you can. Again, it's crafty, right? There's a little bit of stitch, and there's a little bit of glue, and a little bit of tape. You can do all sorts of things there. Using off ice to your advantage. This was one of the biggest things that we saw. There was a lot more use of off ice. For example, splitting up sessions. So having half of the skaters on the ice and half the skaters on off ice, so that they're there for a similar period of time, but using both sides. Finding skills that can be worked on and perfected off the ice so that your ice time is used to its potential. So maybe making sure you're working those jump drills or whatever flexibility, so that when they go to work on that axle or spiral, they're ready on the ice. They're not limited by something that could be worked off the ice. So those were done really, really well this year. There's a lot of clubs that have identified those, the need for more off ice. Adding programs, Melissa alluded to this in her talk. The three programs that were really noticed, or the two programs, sorry, was Parent and Taught and Camp Power. Parent and Taught was out of necessity because we couldn't get the little pre-cans on the ice, but there's many clubs that undertook it and will now keep it. So some clubs said, oh my goodness, I'm never doing that again. And other clubs said that we're going to keep it, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to move it. Note that something like Parent and Taught can be combined into any can skate session. It doesn't need to be a standalone. It doesn't need to be even its own group, depending on the organization structure on your ice. So that was a good one. And this year, we can also think about adding things like synchro. So because synchro was hit so hard, it's a great place. This is a great year to really hit up that discipline in the sport, for sure. So before I go on to the virtual options at the end here, I want to do one more poll before this guide. And I really want to know who ran Karen Skate Parent and Taught this past season, and what you thought of it. So I'm going to launch this guy. Oh, this is interesting. Just a couple more people in there. 1 second, I'll share it with you. Wow. Okay, so very interesting. So we have most people didn't run it. So, and there's combinations of reasons for that, just because I know, as talking to the clubs and schools, that they couldn't get can skate on the ice at all, or they chose not to. That's very interesting. They did, and then there's many people that ran it and are running it again. That's really cool to see. Leanne says too expensive, and I'm really glad to see that that's going to happen. Note that there's value in running Parent and Taught sessions, even if you're running pre-can skate. This is a great place where you can get some skaters that may not be comfortable on the ice without their parents. If you don't have a lot of PAs at your club, it's a great way to get more skaters on the ice. So there are definitely some advantages. The biggest cons to it is that the parent has to pay their Skate Canada fee. So it's a challenge that way. But if we're not limited by numbers, that won't be an issue this year. Okay. All right. So lastly, we're going to move on to virtual options. So again, out of necessity, we had to incorporate virtual. It was either virtual or nothing for a lot of people for a long time, which is really, really hard. But it may have been out of necessity, but we've learned there's a lot of advantages to adding this type of opportunity to our club initiatives. So examples that we heard in our meetings, so was offering meetings virtually. So these could be your parent info sessions. It could be the sessions where you're talking about your COVID protocols before everybody gets to the rink. It could be about your sessions. It could be your Coach Connect. We had one club that said they'd never had all of the coaches in one room for a coaches meeting before, and they did it virtually, and they had every coach at every meeting. So that's a really big plus. Board meetings, of course, can be done online, and parent, skater, and coach planning sessions, right? If you're going to get in and start working your goals, we can get this done where we don't actually have to meet in person anymore, which helps because now if my skater's at the cottage, I can still meet with them, get our stuff done, and still be ready to start the season. Okay. Off season, off ice sessions, we can also run online. There's a lot of those this year. And we offered a ton through Skate Ontario. You could do things like jumps in fitness, you could do mental training, you do team building, even awards, right? Celebrations, you could be celebrating volunteers, you could be celebrating achievements at the rink. There's all sorts of things that can be done online that way. And there's even now opportunity to share your on-ice experiences. So last season we saw on-ice galas and ice shows, those types of things. But you could put your assessment days on live so parent could see them. There's ways that you can do more celebrations of highlights during the week. So if my skater Josie landed her axle, I could now have that online for my parents. I can communicate with them virtually and have a meeting and see them. So there are definitely more options for virtual, and it really does add to your program. The feedback that we've heard from it is that there's more engagement. So there's people are able to get to them. There's no room cost them nothing to do it. And it mixes things up. So it's not always the same thing day in, day out. So we would definitely recommend those for sure. Excellent. Are there any questions with any of those?
There's nothing in the Q&A, and if anybody has any questions about anything we've presented on today, feel free either in the chat or in the Q&A. Feel free to type her down. We'll wait a few seconds in case somebody's typing.
This was a quick session today, Melissa.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't guarantee they'll all be quick.
No. You guys can go and get, a snack before you have to go back to work. All right. Well, if there's nothing, no questions or anything like that, we will, I'm just going to do a quick highlight for next week. So we have, kind of, as Sharon said, we have the 6-week session. So our next session is next Wednesday at noon again, on budgeting processes. So we'll have Derek Ventnor. He is the Director of Finance and Operations here at Skate Ontario joining us. So he'll come in and speak about that. And I will be speaking about some virtual fundraising options for you guys to look into this year. So I hope you guys can all make it. I did see Muriel had a question about will there be updated tracking sheets? We will get back to you. We're looking at that right now. We will bring that back and update you guys as soon as possible on that one. So I'm not sure. Perfect. Well, if that's everything, thank you guys for joining again, and we hope to see you next week. Have a great
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.